Hello, here we go. We're back. It's been a while. And where are we at? I suppose it's 7th of May. I think the last time I did one of these was when? Let's find out. That was over a week ago. I didn't do any last week. So this is 10 days, my goodness. So that's the longest I've gone without doing one of these videos since I started doing it, which is interesting. Why is that, you might be asking? It's a great question. Let's begin. So, no real particular reason. I worked last week and it's bank holiday here in Ireland yesterday, so I wasn't working yesterday. But last week was a busy week in a lot of good ways. A lot of client work to wrap up at the end of the month. And yeah, other than that, I'm just quite heads down trying to win new clients, to be honest. I've got up the whiteboard again, Q2 objectives, and I'm pretty focused on those. I think if I could summarize in a nutshell why I'm not doing these videos is that while I'm still getting compliments or praise about some of the ones that people have watched, which I think is still so surprising to me in some ways, they're ultimately not a main driver of growth and a driver of new clients for me. So while they might be a nice supplement to maybe my, I suppose, business or a way for people to learn a bit more about me and what I do and how I think about things, it's not the main source of new conversations. And frankly, I'm just trying to focus on the things that are actually doing that, and that is the content on LinkedIn, the connections and direct messaging on LinkedIn, referrals, partnerships. So yeah, it's not a mainstream towards adding new clients, which is number one on that whiteboard for this quarter. And I think that in a nutshell is why I'm not doing these videos on a daily basis anymore. That's fine, I don't have any, I actually kind of miss it. I think it was the couple of months I had where I was very consistent with it. I was very happy doing them because it added a layer of, I suppose, familiarity or consistency to the day. And as I've talked about in previous videos, which I won't say again because it's kind of getting repetitive at this point, April was a kind of a disruptive month in terms of progress in general and work in general. So I think probably just I'm a little bit off the pace of doing these every day, and who knows, I might find my feet again in the coming weeks. But certainly my ambition with these videos is to keep doing them. As I say, I will do this up to the 1 year mark, which actually now is 5 weeks away. So yeah, it's kind of interesting for me. I actually set up the business, I got my months mixed up. I thought I set up the business officially in July. I set it up in June, but I didn't really do anything in June towards it. So I suppose technically we have an anniversary date, but it's, kind of what would you say? It's like a false or a fake anniversary, I don't know. Anyway, but other than that, yeah, I'm happy with where the business is at for what it's worth. I suppose let's do a quick update on what's happened. So business is pretty much the same size, same number of clients as I had, which means the revenue is in the same place, which is fine. I have had some promising conversations, so the pipeline is healthier than it was last month, which is great. I know one of the things I flagged last month was exactly that. I said that it felt like things had slowed down a little bit, and they had on the pipeline front, but they're definitely better than they were, which is good. I also think that in relation to the work I'm doing with clients, there's a lot more structure to it. So one of the key things I wanted to do was pretty much have a better system for managing the work I'm doing with clients and then tracking the progress towards their objectives. I've done that, so I updated the tracker I use. I say done it, I've done that part of it. The missing piece for me is still, I suppose, more proactively illustrating the progress we're making each month. So as opposed to me hoping that a client goes into a Notion dashboard and looks at this thing, I want to be saying to them every month or every quarter, hey, look, this is where we were, these are the key things that happened, these are the things that didn't go so well, these are the things you flagged. I guess in a way it's a bit of reporting, and I think that's important, or I know it's important, but it's one of those ones where I haven't quite wrapped my own head around the way to do it yet. So I'm not going to put too much pressure on myself to start doing something like in May. I think a nice time to do this will be June, which obviously feeds into the end of another quarter. So that is, that is pretty much it in general. LinkedIn posting is up to 5 times a week now. I think I'll increase it to 6. The work I'm doing with the person I've got helping me there is good. I feel the progress in the content I'm creating is there. There's definitely more of a system to having more conversations with people. I would say, where's the challenge at the moment on that front? I thought to myself this morning that something still feels a little bit forced, and that's more to do with me. What I mean by that is, I think some of the content is a little bit forced in the sense of it's not quite natural to me yet, or I'm not quite 100% comfortable with how to do it yet, and that's fine. Equally, some of the messages I'm sending to people, I feel like it could be better, and I want to work on that. So yeah, there's a couple of things there in motion, but ultimately everything's moving in the right direction, and the right direction to me means I'm moving closer to a point where I have a business that is closer to capacity, and a business that has a steady stream of new opportunities coming in the door every month. And that to me is where I want to be by the end of this year. So anyway, that's all about me and my business. The general thoughts at the moment, or what's coming up, is an interesting one because I've had 2 cases. So the general theme of at the moment is dealing with things that are outside of your control as an agency owner. So in 2 separate cases, for 2 very different reasons, I've had clients suffer quite badly in the last 2 weeks in relation to something that's happened to them that's completely out of their control. To be really honest, I feel quite bad for them both. It's not going to ruin their business. It's not devastating to the long-term health of their company. It's just a road bump or a speed bump, or I guess a challenge that they have to overcome. And in both cases, it's kind of come out of the blue, and they've both handled it extremely well from my perspective. I think what's been impressive about it in both cases has been that despite the fact both things are very different, they didn't dwell on it for too long. They accepted it for what it was, which I think are 2 really important things. So they didn't let it fester. They didn't sit on it and overthink it. They got moving quite quickly, and they didn't see it as, oh, the world's against me, or geez, why is this happening? They were able to then quite quickly move into, I suppose, action mode. So what can they do about it? What is actually now in their control in relation to this thing that has happened? And in both cases, they spoke to maybe varying amounts to get my perspective. But in one of the cases in particular, we were quite quickly able to put together a plan for the next couple of weeks about what the person can do and what they shouldn't do. And in that case, it's essentially things are already sorted as far as they can be sorted. The implications for the business will be just for the next few weeks, things are a bit slow in terms of their own client work. They won't be able to take on new business, and that's fine. But after that, it should be fine. And in the other case, it's a bit more up in the air. But I think again, that owner is, handling it well. And what I thought about it was, it's a great example of these things can pop up at any moment in time. Like I use the example, one of your top performers could hand in the notice tomorrow. There's a percentage chance that it happens. It's unlikely, but there's always a chance it happens. And there's so many of these things within the context of an agency that can happen that feel quite tough. They can be quite hard to take and accept. And unfortunately, they can keep coming. Like just because you have a bad or a tough month that feels like there's lots of bad things happening to you, there's no reason it can't happen again the following month. So you have to be quite resilient. You have to be quite accepting of the fact that there could be months on end where there are things that happen outside of your control within your agency that you can't do anything about. So it's very much how you handle it and how you respond to it. So it's something that, again, from my perspective, not being in the agencies is quite interesting, because if I was in the agency, I would have way more influence or decision-making power, or I suppose way more responsibility to handle these situations. Whereas these two cases are the first time it's probably happened since I've been outside of an agency. And my role now is to be particularly, I would say particularly objective about it, and to take the emotion out of it, because I'm not in the business. It's important that I don't maybe add fuel to the fire. So I don't want to stoke the flame and increase the frustration that an agency owner feels by coming in and saying the wrong thing, for example. But anyway, interesting situations. It can happen to anyone at any point in time, and in these two cases, these guys have responded really, really well to the quite challenging situation. So that was an interesting theme from the last week or two. Obviously not such a positive one for clients, but at the same time, as I said to them, it's almost a positive for me in some ways, because it's great to see people handling tough situations about as well as they can do. So I think it's a nod to each of those people. But for anyone running a business out there, and this includes myself, it's a great example of how you have a choice. Basically, you have a choice how you respond to those challenging situations or those tough situations. But in both cases, they could have reacted very differently, and how things are going for them now could be very different to how they have been in the last couple of weeks. So anyway, that was interesting. And other than that, they're actually, maybe part of the reason I haven't done daily videos is actually because I feel like for the first time since I started doing them, there really hasn't been too many. There's more been a repetition of things that have come up for me in the last couple of weeks with people. Some similar conversations to ones I had earlier in the year. So anyway, I sense there'll be more of an opportunity to do a couple more of these this week. But equally, as I say, I just see it more like a supplement to myself and my day in the business, as opposed to an out and out mechanism for educating an audience or telling my story or whatever it might be. So anyway, I've just personally really tried to sharpen my focus on a couple of select things off the back of having a month where I simply didn't have the time to do anything about that. And it was kind of an interesting one, because it's made me realise how much you can actually get done in very little time. So for example, I've got an hour now where I have two key things I need to do, and you know, truthfully, they could easily take 2 or 3 hours, but they'll take an hour and they'll be done really well, and there's no need to stretch it out. So yeah, just doing more of the time I have, and just focusing on a couple of key things at the moment, really what I'm up to. So anyhow, I think that's probably it. I'm gonna go do those things, and yeah, excited to get a video done. So speak to you soon.